Good evening, sports fans, and welcome to a brand new episode of Let's Whine About DMV Sports here on Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Tonight, we'll be taking our usual broad look across the DMV landscape. We're going to start with the college ranks, where we look at what Maryland has done in the Big Ten tournament, that we thought they were eliminated. My mistake. I thought they were out last week. Turns out they hadn't even started yet. The women's team did get eliminated, but the men's team did not. We're going to take a look at how they did and how that will impact their seeding for the big NCAA tournament. We'll also check in on our college teams, college baseball and softball teams, see how they are doing. From there, we will move into NFL free agency. A lot happened this week for both the Commanders and the Ravens. For the Commanders, handful of new additions, a lot of re-signings. Roster is shaping up to be pretty dang well entering the draft. The Ravens, little bit of work to do. Little bit of uncertainty in certain parts of the roster. So we're going to talk about all of that. And then, of course, we have to check in with our usual DMV squads. The Caps had a really good week. The Wizards continue to perform surprisingly well. And of course, spring training's still going on. We got to check in with the Orioles and the Nats and see how things are shaping up with opening day less than 2 weeks away. All while continuing DMV month with an appropriately green drink. We've got all that and more coming up on Let's Whine About DMV Sports on the IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clanking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go.
Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at isportsradio.com. At isportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the iSports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop, including t-shirts, tank tops, Thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back to Let's Wine About DMV Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Once again, shout out to our sponsors, Planet Jerky and Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Jerky that's on a whole other planet. They've got all different kinds of flavors, ranging from their classics like barbecue, sweet Thai chili, all the way up to the super spicy stuff, volcanic jalapeno, Reaper, all of that jazz. So do be sure to go to planetjerky.net today to check them out. Also, Vital Apparel, supporting mental health research. Fantastic cause. Use code IESR to get 15% off today and continue to support them as they work towards their goal of supporting mental health. Great cause there. Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. The perfect touch to your special event, be it a wedding, party, baby shower, birthday, whatever it may be. Seal the Deal Wax Seals has you covered. And our newest sponsor, Raw Nutrition Supplements. Go to Get Raw Nutrition today. Use promo code IESR to get 10% off. Prices are going up everywhere, so definitely take advantage of these codes. They've got all the different kind of nutrients you need, not just the basic stuff. They go super in-depth on their website. So go to getrawnutrition.com and don't forget to use promo code IESR. Do be sure to follow us on all social media, as well as yours truly on X at Let's Wine _IESR. And if you are a diehard fan of the show and you want to become an even better supporter than you already are, which you are all fantastic supporters already, we appreciate every single one of you out there, whether you're listening live or later on in the week. But go to our supporters club and you can contribute today. Just $5 get you a handful of perks, shout outs on the shows. We get to focus on your favorite sports team, preferably DMV, and we'll even do a shout out to your favorite beverage, whatever that may be. So just $5 a month gets you all of that. But yeah, go to the Supporters Club and help us continue to grow our network and continue to be your direct feed for all that is sports. We have a jam-packed show full of sports for you tonight, but first, of course, we must start with our choice of beverage. We are still in DMV Beverage Month. We've had a very tasty wine, and now we are moving to the beer side of things. So the DMV has not an overabundance of breweries. It's not like North Carolina, where I live, where you can literally stroll down the block and pass 10 breweries in your process. They're slightly more selective, but they all produce really good, really fun beers. And so tonight we have one from Dogfish Head Brewing, which is known nationally. They are actually out of, I believe, Delaware. Yes, Brewery Milton, Delaware is their headquarters, which there's different definitions of what people describe as the DMV. Colloquially, I think it's known more nationwide as Delaware, Maryland, Virginia. More locally, it's referred to as DC, Maryland, Virginia. And even then, there's a very small bubble that kind of correlates to that area. So different definitions, but we're branching into Delaware because Dogfish Head is just such a good brewery. They make really good beers. And this is their Sequence Ale, ale with lime. You can see that right there. Only 4.9% alcohol, so lighter than what we've been doing recently. You know, a lot of those IPAs especially, they get into the sevens. No, just 4.9%, a lot more basic, a lot more easy drinking, crushable. Let's read the description here. A uniquely refreshing wheat beer is brewed with lime juice, lime peel, black limes, and sea salts. It's utterly refreshing and bursting with tart citrus. We brew our culinary inspired beers using real ingredients. I don't know many breweries using fake ingredients, but okay. Every beer has a story rooted in adventurous flavors and creative brewing process. Explore the goodness with every sip. I think this beer is also a combination of like two of their base beers. So, yes, very fun, much more light, easy drinking beer here. We got to get our pour going. Like I said, the DMV doesn't have an overabundance of breweries, but there are a handful that are known nationally, and they are very well regarded. That was a pretty darn good pour, if I do say so. So you can tell it's got kind of that pale ale type coloring going on, very light golden color, nothing too deep, nothing too dark, which again kind of goes along with the refreshing and light description. Bursting with tart citrus, so let's give it a whiff. Smells lime. You can definitely smell the lime on the nose there. Unfortunately, I can't swirl it like I would a glass of wine, but it definitely smells lime, salts, little tart, definitely the tart citrus on the nose. So let's give it a taste. It's definitely tart, a little bitter. Quite refreshing, I will say. That's a good beer. It doesn't have any weird bitterness. All the bitterness comes from the tartness of the citrus, so that's not anything odd. You don't get hit with an overabundance of like a hoppy flavor as you would with an IPA. Yeah, no, this is definitely, the description says it all. I think bursting with tart citrus might be a little bit embellishment, but it definitely has that citrusy present, refreshing. Lime flavor comes across nicely, not too overpowering. You do get a little bit of that sea salt on the tongue. So yeah, overall, it's a very well balanced beer, very well made, which, you know, to a certain point, when it comes to craft breweries, there are so many of them out there. So many of them trying different things, trying new things, that at the end of the day, it's almost gonna come down to just who makes the beers right. Who just makes good, solid, quality beers? Whose beers don't have issues? I can tell you a common problem in the craft beer world is canning and, you know, storage and things, some of the simple basic things that if you don't do it well, or like getting the brewing process down to a T. Things that if you don't do well can lead to actual physical problems with your beer. I don't know if anybody has had the joy of experiencing an exploding beer can, but I have, and it's not fun. It's a little concerning. Even though the worst that happens is you get splashed with beer, it's still an unnerving sound to hear the pop of an exploding beer can because the brewer put too much yeast in the beer and now it's undergoing a secondary fermentation where a fermentation in the absence of oxygen, which is the case in a sealed can, produces carbon dioxide, which is what causes those cans to expand. So, you can deal with that. Your problems with their canning process can lead to cans with busted seals, which leads to rotten beer taste, skunked beer. You know, at the end of the day, you just have to come down to beer that's just made right. And this is a beer that is made right from a brewery that I know for a fact makes their beers right. So shout out to Dogfish Head up there in Delaware. Repping the DMV well, you guys make good beer. Normally, this would be the point where we take our first break. However, we've got some college sports to get to, so we're going to go ahead and discuss those guys. Now, I do owe you all a correction from last week. I had said that both Maryland basketball teams, men's and women's, had been eliminated from their respective tournaments, the Big Ten tournaments. Now, I was right about the women's team. They had gotten knocked out pretty early in their process, but the men's team had not even started play, so I do apologize for getting that correct. They had an automatic bye to the quarterfinal, where they subsequently defeated Illinois yesterday before facing off against Michigan today and losing on a buzzer-beating layup by 1 point, which somebody noted was like their fourth loss by buzzer beater this year, which is absurd. I know they lost to Michigan on like a half-court buzzer-beating three this past month. So kind of seems to be an issue for Maryland. They're suffering. They've been at the wrong end of a little bit too much March Madness so far, but it is what it is. The team had opportunities to kind of put this away. They were actually down by 10 halfway through the second half, and they mounted a pretty incredible comeback to make it a game, but ultimately they could not put it away. Now, what does that mean for their seeding? Well, they were actually ranked 11th in the country entering the tournament, and I think getting one win under their belt against a ranked Illinois team is going to help their cause. However, the loss to Michigan, and depending on how the other conference championships work their way out, 3 seed would have been the case, I think, if they had won the Big Ten tournament, maybe even the last 2 seed, the 8th, if you want to put them 8th in the ranking. However, I think 4 seed is a lot more likely at this point. Again, it's going to depend on how the rest of the conference championships shake out, but I think 4 is much more likely, which sucks because there's actually a pretty big difference between 3 and 4. 3 seed, your toughest matchup before the Elite 8 is going to be the 2 seed in your bracket, whereas the 4 seed you have to run into the top seed in your bracket, and depending on how you draw that could be a Duke, that could be an Auburn, although I think Auburn got ousted in the SEC tournament, so we'll have to see how that works. That could be some of these other really fantastic teams we have here in college basketball. So you don't love that result. However, there's not much else you can really do at this point. They played a good game, heartbreaking loss, and that is that. Looking just across college basketball as a whole, yes, Auburn did get ousted by Tennessee. Looks like Tennessee and Florida will face off in the SEC tournament final. I think Florida, with their victory over Alabama today, probably has a 1 seed locked up as well. Auburn might be questionable. Houston looks like they're going to get a 1 seed. They won the Big 12 championship. And then St. John's is a 6 seed. I'd be very surprised if they got a 1 seed. This is going to be interesting to see how they sort through this because Michigan State lost in the Big Ten semifinal as well. They were the 7 seed. I would be very surprised if they gave St. John's a 1 despite winning the Big East, but that would require them to give one of Auburn or Alabama a 1 seed, and they both lost in the SEC semifinals. So Duke definitely going to get one of the 1 seeds for sure, even if they lose to Louisville for the ACC tournament, which they're currently down at half, but I think Duke's got a 1 seed. Houston's got a 1 seed for sure. And I'm going to say Florida, especially if they win the SEC tournament, they're going to have a 1 seed. It's going to be an interesting debate between Auburn, Alabama, and St. John's, it looks like, who gets that last seed. Or maybe Tennessee, if they win the SEC tournament, do they have a reasonable argument to be the last number 1 seed? That would be interesting. So lots for the committee to figure out. Looking at it, Alabama's at 25-8. I'd be very surprised if that got a 1 seed. So I don't think Alabama's going to get it. I think it's between Auburn, St. John's, and then maybe Tennessee, like I said, if they win the SEC championship. Before we move on, some notes here. Larry B jumping in the chat. He's at South Coast Winery this evening. That sounds excellent, sir. Drinking St. Patty's Day wine. Apparently, they are drinking port. So that sounds great. Cecilia B, wife of Larry B, has a Riesling, I'm guessing, at that same winery. So good for them. And then Brian Francione joining us from Boston for our Boston show. He's got a beer on him. Well, salute to you, sir. I'll drink to that. Jumping back in it to the college ranks, quick baseball check-in. We've got all of our baseball teams are kind of mid right now. Virginia Tech sitting at 12-7 overall. Kind of been up and down so far. Same with Maryland, 10-9. We kind of predicted that, but we've got Virginia has fallen kind of back to the pack a bit. They are down to 10-6, and they plummeted down the rankings. They were up to 9, but now they're all the way down, I believe, into 21 was the last ranking there. But they did win since then, so hopefully that will help them recoup a little bit. In softball, Virginia softball is doing much better. They're 21-7 now with a 5-game winning streak. So they are getting their ducks in a row there on the softball team. I'm just jumping my way through the rest of these really quick here. Maryland softball team, who had not been doing so great overall. They've been doing all right, just not fantastic. They are looking at they are at 11-12. Okay, so they are still not performing great. So I don't think this is going to be a banner year for Maryland softball. But that's all right. The basketball team's got it. They're gonna take care of it all for everybody. Somebody pointed out an interesting fact about the men's basketball team. When the team won the championship back in 2001, they got ousted in the semifinals of the ACC tournament. So, hey, there you go. And then Virginia softball is at 22-5. So both of our Virginia softball schools are looking pretty darn good. I expect them to get some good love in the rankings for when we talk about on the Bullpen Bulletin coming up on Tuesdays at 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific. So do be sure to check that out. We're going to take our first break. When we come back, we're going to jump into NFL free agency. A lot of stuff happened earlier in this week. We're got a lot to cover, so do not go away. You're listening to Let's Whine About DMV Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
How we doing, sports fans? This is Christian Harvey, your host of Gritsville USA, your go-to show for all things Detroit and Michigan here on IE Sports Radio. Whether you're here for Gritty Lions talk, getting pumped up for the great Detroit sports renaissance, or hating on your neighbor depending on if they were green or blue, we got you covered. Whether you're in the East, West, or Central, we got you covered. join me as we tackle through all that the great state of Michigan has to offer in the world of sports. Catch me, Christian Harvey, each week on Gritsville, USA, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Are you a fan of Minnesota sports? Do you love the Vikings and hate the Packers? Are you a fan of the Timberwolves, Twins, Wild, Lynx, St. Paul Saints? Here on the Bold North Breakdown, we'll talk about all of those professional teams as well as all the college teams in the area. That's your basketball teams, football, hockey, volleyball, men's and women's sports alike. We talk about them all. Here on the Bold North Breakdown. Join me, your host, Glenn Ritter, every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Central to discuss all that is happening in the Minnesota sports scene. Here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back to Let's Whine About DMV Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We're going to jump into NFL free agency now. We've got a lot going on in free agency. We're going to start with the Commanders, who made a ton of moves. The biggest move, and first of all, let's remember that we had discussed the trade for Deebo Samuel because that had already happened. But they made another big trade early on in the week, trading for Houston left tackle Laramie Tunsil. That's right. They traded with the Houston Texans. Interestingly enough, this is the second time Tunsil has been involved in a major trade. The other time was when he went from Miami to Houston, and Houston actually had to give up a first-round pick in that exchange. The Commanders did not. They gave up what did they give up? Third and a seventh this year, and then a second and a fourth round pick next year. So 4 total picks for Tunsil, and then they did recoup a fourth round pick this season. So that does leave the Commanders a little bit scant on draft picks, but to get a very good left tackle to solidify that spot does give the team a very strong offensive line going into next year, even with Samuel Cosmi, very talented right guard, projected to miss the first part of the season with an injury. I think there are easy ways around that. Tunsil will take the left tackle spot from Brandon Coleman, who will probably move to either left guard or right tackle. Part of me likes the idea of him moving to left guard, where he'll get to be between Tunsil and veteran center Tyler Biadasz. That'll protect any of his mistakes and allow him to use his toughness and athleticism. I could also see him going to right tackle and then moving right tackle Andrew Wiley either to left guard and then having Nick Allegretti fill in at right guard until Cosmi's ready to return, or they keep Allegretti at left guard, who should be very well protected between Biadasz and Tunsil. He was, by PFF and many grading standards, the worst of the 5 offensive linemen for the Commanders this past season. But moving Allegretti to right guard and letting Wiley take over left guard full-time, or letting Wiley man the right guard spot until Cosmi's ready to come back. Now, what they do with Wiley at that point, questionable. It is the last year of his contract, so at that point, depending on what point in the season he returns, you could probably just waive him or just move him to a backup role for the last little bit of time, maybe make him the 6th offensive lineman. I think the best course of action is one of the course of actions that puts Allegretti as the injury replacement, just because Allegretti's contract, he's not the greatest. of the offensive linemen. I think it's better for him to have that reserve role once Cosme returns as the sixth offensive lineman. But in any case, big upgrade to the offensive line. Other key additions, the team made a lot to the defensive side of the ball, adding cornerback Jonathan Jones, defensive tackle Javon Kinlaw, defensive ends Dietrich Wise and Jake Martin, and safety Will Harris. Not really Pro Bowl players, any of this group, but very solid contributors who should be able to make an impact on this defense and overcome a lot of the losses, which you will note, all of the losses were basically at the same positions that they signed. So they lost cornerback Benjamin St-Juste. They replaced him with Jonathan Joseph. They lost Jonathan Allen. They replaced him with Javon Kinlaw. They lost Dante Fowler. They replaced him with Dietrich Wise and Jake Martin. You're getting the picture. Jeremy Chin leaves. They get Will Harris. So basically, they offset all of their losses, in some cases with more affordable options. Actually, in pretty much every case except Kinlaw, who's actually going to cost about the same as Jonathan Allen. Well, maybe a little bit less. So in general, they saved a little bit of money with the switches. The only player who I'm really sad to see go from this list was Chin. I really like the contributions he made to the defense, playing that hybrid safety nickel linebacker role. I thought he performed very well. Was he otherworldly? No. But I think you could make an argument that he was probably maybe the third or fourth best player on that defense last year. Frankie Louvu by far the best, by the way, and none of the defensive linemen except maybe Dante Fowler could make an argument for being on that list. The other guys you could maybe argue Bobby Wagner, Mike Sandra still. Those are basic. That's basically it. Good defense, but they do not have a ton of studs, and a lot of re-signings. This doesn't even cover all of them, but they did bring back Bobby Wagner, who will pair with Frankie Louvu for one more year. Defensive lineman Clellan Farrell, and Sheldon Day, who provide good depth and good run stopping ability to the defense. Cornerback Noah Ingbahine, who was very good in the nickel this year. I think he makes a very good fourth corner with Jones and then the existing Marshawn Lattimore and Sandra still. And then on offense, they returned good backup quarterback Marcus Mariota. Glad to see him back. The ever-solid Zach Ertz returns, and the ever-solid Noah Brown, who will probably be the fourth receiver-ish, maybe the fifth receiver. They do have, obviously you expect McLaurin and Samuel to be the top two. Luke McCaffrey's there. They also brought back, I did not mention, KJ Osborne. So Osborne and Brown bringing in the depth there. Other moves, they did re-sign offensive lineman Michael Dieter and brought in offensive lineman Nate Herbig. Both guys, interior players, can play basically all three interior offensive line positions, and I think you combine them with Chris Paul, that gives the team very good depth on the interior offensive line. It definitely shows that they still consider Coleman at least an option at tackle. Obviously Wiley as well, because they did not invest heavily in the offensive tackle position. It does seem clear that they still think they have three offensive tackles. Also, I believe they brought back Trent Scott as well, so that's your other offensive tackle there. So they've got the offensive line, unless they find some phenomenal deal on another player and they decide to move off of Andrew Wiley, then sure. But I think they've got the offensive line figured out. I think they've got the main contributors on offense all figured out. I do think they need some young weapons, some guys to kind of stash lower on the depth chart for a year, let them develop, and then let them take bigger roles. Because fun fact, the entire running back core is free agents next year. Brian Robinson Jr., Austin Eckler, and re-signees Chris Rodriguez and Jeremy McNichols, who are backups. All four of them are free agents next year. So I would like the team at some point, I think, to draft a running back from a very good running back class, by the way. Even if he doesn't get playing time, somebody to have and develop so that next year they at least have a piece in place. And same with wide receiver. I would like to see them get a young, intriguing wide receiver, maybe somebody with some kick return upside would be useful, although Luke McCaffrey seemed to have that last year. That's really it on offense. I think quarterback set, tight end. I don't think they're going to go after it this year now with all the moves they made. Offensive line, like I said, I think it's set where it is. Most of the rest of the moves need to be on defense, and even then, they could sit where they are on edge. With the resigning of Clellan Ferrell, they could go into next season with Dorrance Armstrong, Jake Martin, Dietrich Weiss, Clellan Ferrell, and Javante John Baptiste as their defensive end core. Would it be great? No. Would you argue that it would be league average at best? Probably. But they could go into it. I think defensive tackle set. Linebacker, I think there needs to be something. And then defensive back depth. I think there's a way defensive back depth and linebacker kind of play together, and it depends on how they want to play the defense. Last year, like I said, they essentially had they had six safeties on the active roster essentially at all times because they were using Jeremy Chin as a third linebacker, and essentially rookie safety Dominique Hampton was his backup, but also a backup at safety. So they've had this hybridized role, and Hampton will return probably in a backup slash special teams role. But do they replace Chin's spot, or do they use Will Harris? Do they use more of a traditional safety setup? But I do think they need some defensive back depth as well. And I think, that's something that they can wait until the later rounds. Both the weapons and the defensive back depth, I mean, they can combine it. They've only have 5 draft picks. So it's not like they have a ton to play around with. They could trade around, maybe make it into 1 or 2 more. But they only have so much to play with, so something's just going to be left basically as it is, maybe with one small addition. But overall, I like the roster. I like where it is. I think it's better than what we ended the season with. I think you see upgrades at different spots. I think you've seen the defense has stayed pretty much the same quality-wise as it was at the end of year last year. I think the offense is a little bit better with the addition of Deebo Samuel and Laramie Tunsil. I think those are 2 upgrades at positions that needed upgrades. So overall, you can't be mad when the offense is looking good and the defense is about the same. One's improved, one stays the same. Hey, that's a pretty good spot to be. Jen B jumping in the chat room. Good evening, ma'am. She does not have a beer. She has water. No alcohol in her house right now. Alcohol and blood thinners equals bad news. Well, yeah, it's like a double blood thinner because alcohol is a blood thinner in itself. So yes, that is bad news. So good call, Jen. Do not drink alcohol when you're on blood thinners. On to the Ravens review. A lot less exciting, a lot less activity than the Commanders. Their biggest new move was the signing of veteran receiver DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins was a free agent. The Ravens went out and swooped him up to join Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman at the wide receiving core. Gives them a pretty darn good trio on a team that already had really good running backs, really good tight ends, and a perennial MVP candidate in Lamar Jackson. But the interesting thing, and I was going down the list, I think that's the only major addition that they made. The only other free agent, the only other new player that was added to this roster, at least of any major significance, was special teams linebacker Jake Hummel coming over from the Rams. So, yeah, not a lot of new faces entering the building for the Ravens. Now, key losses, a lot of guys. You could just go down the positions. Sorry, at wide receiver, Nelson Aguilar's gone. That's pretty much the main guy who's gone from last year. Let's see. Offensive line, Patrick McCarry and Josh Jones, 2 of their key backups from last year. McCarry, who got a lot of snaps at left guard. Both of them are gone. Was there anybody else? Ben Cleveland re-signed, which we're going to get to. Let's see. Defensive line, Brent Urban has not re-signed. Michael Pierce retired. So that's another defensive lineman gone. Linebacker, they lost both Malik Harrison and Chris Board, who were good depth guys, good special teamers, guys who filled in and played well on the defensive side of the ball. In the secondary, Desmond King, who else? Arthur Mollett was released, Trey White, and Benjamin St. Juste have all left. Really, the only major re-signings, they re-signed Ben Cleveland. That actually happened today. Wide receiver Tylan Wallace, key special teams and depth guy, good blocker as well. And then safety Ardarius Washington. So they made a few re-signings, one big move, and just let a lot of guys leave. So what's left to do for the Ravens? A lot. They need lots of depth. I was going down the list today. They probably reasonably need about 14 or 15 more pieces on this roster. And it's just on both sides. It's not as much at like running back, tight end, wide receiver. Those spots are pretty well set. They do need a backup quarterback. They just need a ton of depth on the offensive line right now. And they did sign Ben Cleveland, so that helps a bit. But right now they only have 7 at what I would describe as NFL caliber offensive linemen on the roster right now. I think you need to add at least 2 more, maybe even 3 more, given the injury history of this team, for that to feel safe and secure. And then on defense, they need pieces on the defensive line. They need pieces at inside linebacker. They need pieces on cornerback. They need pieces at safety. I would say they probably need a major edge rusher in the draft. So just lots of different depth spots that need to be addressed. And they need a few actual good key contributors in that process. But the good news is that the Ravens did gain 4 compensatory picks when the NFL announced those selections earlier this week. That brings them up to 11 total. They have 1 first, 1 second, 1 third, all their own. Then they have 2 fourth-round picks, a 5th-round pick, 4 sixth-round picks, one of which was acquired in the trade, 1 is their own, and 2 compensatory selections, and a 7th-round pick. So a lot to work with there. It'll be interesting to see if the team makes any major, like a singular major addition entering the draft, or if they let the draft play out and then they play those cards with the post-June 1st guys. Any signing after June 1st does not contribute to the compensatory selection calculation. Right now, they are getting pretty good picks from Patrick McCarry. Oh, cornerback. I did mention Brandon Stevens. Patrick McCarry and Brandon Stevens are likely landing them 5th-round comp picks next year, maybe 4th, depending on how well each does. I don't know. They're both kind of borderline in that 4th, 5th-round section. By my math, DeAndre Hopkins would cancel out with Malik Harrison's contract, and then Josh Jones and Chris Board should be getting the team's 6th or 7th round selections. So right now they're back on track for 4 more comp picks, and they might make 1 or 2 small moves that might cancel out the lowest contract, which is Board's at $3 million a year. So 2 5s and a 6 could be in line for the team next year, or maybe a 4, 5, 6, depending on how it breaks down. That'll do it for the second part of our show. We're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we've got a whole bunch more DMV teams to talk about. Do not go away. You're listening to Let's Whine About DMV Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hockey fans, I'm Adam Kernick.
And I'm Zach Puplis.
Together, we are the newest version of Hockey Talk on IE Sports Radio, The Neutral Zone.
Zone.
We love hockey, but we also know it's not everyone's first sport. So we want to make this show as much for new fans as for the diehards.
Whether you can name all the Swedes on the 08 Red Wings Stanley Cup team, or if you can't tell if Varlamov is a goalie or the latest trendy vodka, we're here to help. With facts, figures, and outrageous fans, we bring you all the hard-hitting hockey news you can handle, while still keeping it fun and on the rails. Well, mostly.
So tune in every week as we go around the hockey world, from college to Canada, the minors and the majors, and everywhere in between.
So bring your cellies.
And your one-timers.
You wicked wristas.
And be sure to protect your 5-hole.
Catch the Neutral Zone every week on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
We promise not to pick on the Arizona Coyotes every episode.
Cleveland and Columbus sports fans, I've got the show for you. I'm Jen B, host of the Show of the Land right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. You want football? I've got the Browns, the Buckeyes, the Eagles, the Purple Raiders, and more for you. You want basketball? I've got the Cavs and the Charge for you. You want hockey? I've got the Blue Jackets and the Monsters for you. You want football, aka soccer? I've got the Crew and the Crunch for you. You want volleyball? I'm going to unleash the fury for you. You want more Cleveland and Columbus sports? I've got them all for you, from the majors to the minors to the college rinks. Catch me, Jen B, every week on the Show of the Land right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sport.
And welcome back to Let's Wine About DMV Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Let's jump into the rest of our DMV teams here. First, we've got the Caps, who went 3-1 on the week. Really good West Coast road trip for them. Did have one kind of bad loss to the Las Vegas Golden Knights there, 3-0. But otherwise, a very good week. 44, 15, and 8 overall, 96 points, still a commanding lead in the Eastern Conference. And that's with the Hurricanes have won, I think, 6 in a row, maybe 7 now, and they're still 10 points back. That's got to be very frustrating for them. They've got to be like, man, we keep winning and we're just not catching up. Let's actually take a look at how they did today. The Hurricanes won. They beat the Flyers. So they've won 7 games in a row and still cannot seem to catch up to the Capitals. The Florida Panthers are 8-2 in their last 10 and are still 11 points behind. And there really isn't anybody else even close that would concern me. The New Jersey Devils, who are third in the division, 18 points back with 15 games to go for us, 14 for them. They're not closing that gap. Nobody else is even in the same neighborhood. The couple of teams, Toronto, Tampa, in the Atlantic Conference, they are charging. So is Ottawa. Ottawa's looking really good. They've won 5 in a row. But either way, the Caps in a commanding lead in the Eastern Conference. Might not win the President's Trophy because the Winnipeg Jets are doing pretty well. But, I'm okay with that. First in the East, I'm good. I am good with that. Player of the week, I know, I'm unoriginal. It's Alex Ovechkin. 2 goals, 4 assists, led the team in points. 3 assists in their 7-4 victory a few nights ago. Alexei Protas had a hat trick in that game. Actually, Ovechkin did give up a goal, an empty net goal at the end to give to Protas so that Protas could get his first hat trick. Really great moment from the captain there. But he is the player of the week. Protas came close. Actually, Tom Wilson had 5 assists in 4 games, so shout out to him as well. But Ovechkin gets the nod. For the record watch, today was number 887. That puts him 7 to tie, 8 to pass with 15 games to go. We are inching our way there, guys. We are getting so freaking close. Jen B makes a great note, on pace to break the record in Columbus. Hey, there you go, Jen B. We might be witnessing history together, my friend. I am excited to see what happens, not only with the record, but, once we get into the playoffs, because all of this success is nothing if you get bounced in the first round. So the Caps got to keep it up. They have achieved so far in the second half, I think we're about a little less than a month into the second half, or the post-All-Star break portion of the NHL season. They have kept up the goal, which is to get the momentum and keep that momentum going. No second half slumps. They have kept that going. They had a little bit of a stretch there. They did lose 3 in a row, but if you lose 3 in a row once over an 82-game season, I'm okay with it because they have moved past that for sure. And an amazingly supplementary positive note, the Wizards keep winning. Wouldn't you know it, this past week, kind of a weird schedule setup for them where they had back-to-back road games against the Raptors and then back-to-back road games against the Pistons, but they went 1-1 against both. Very impressive against the Pistons. So that gets them 2-2 overall on the week, 14-51 overall. That gap between them and the other teams has closed. The Utah Jazz, as it stands, are actually tied in terms of win-loss, but they've played more games, so they own the percentage advantage over the Wizards. They do play a critical game against each other coming up here in a few weeks. Right now, the Wizards are losing to the Nuggets, so, I mean, that'll help their cause. Do the Jazz play today? No. So a loss tonight does get the Wizards back half a game as the worst team. It's really still that 4-team race. Brooklyn and Philadelphia are tanking hard right now. They have both fallen very far in the Eastern Conference standings. My God, I mean, the Eastern Conference is so sad. You got Chicago 10 games below 500. No offense, Adam Karnick. Love working with you here on the network, but Chicago 10 games below 500 is in the 10 spot and going to be in the play-ins. Miami, 8 games below. New Orleans. Atlanta is 3 games below 500, and they're the 7 seed. Man, I mean, the Eastern Conference is just so sad. The West, I mean, you've got Dallas in the 10 seed. They're below 500. Sacramento's in the 9. They're at 500. Dallas, I expect to tank out. I think actually Phoenix gets that 10 spot. Maybe even jumps up into the 9. We'll see. And then you've got the Clippers, who are 7 games above 500, and they're the 8 seed. By the way, Detroit is 7 games above 500, and they're the 6 seed in the East. And then Minnesota, 10 games above 500, and still has to play for a play-in spot for a chance to hopefully not get the Oklahoma City Thunder, because that's what the last team in the playoffs gets is the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, freaking the 7 seed still gets Denver or Houston or maybe even LA, depending on how well their charge continues. So that's still not great. But in any case, we're not concerned about that because we're not anywhere near that. We're not anywhere near that challenge point. We are at the bottom. Player of the week. This one's too close to call. I was originally going to give it to Jordan Poole, who averaged 20.5 points per game and scored 34 in their first victory against the Raptors. But, I mean, a lot of guys contributed very well. Chris Middleton has been very good since he came over from Milwaukee in the trade. He averaged 17 points a game this past week. Keyshawn George was playing very good on both ends this past week. Alex Sarr looked good. Justin Sampagni's looked good in spurts. Corey Kispert. A lot of the team has looked good. And what have I told you? These teams that are full of B- and C+, C+, and C players, everybody has to be on for them to win. So the fact that they won 2 games means a lot of guys had to contribute good nights, night in and night out, for this team to win. So I don't know if I can pick a player of the week. I know that sounds like a cop-out, but just so many guys played well. I think it's fair to shout out the whole team. Even Rashawn Holmes, I gotta shout out Rashawn Holmes. He played a grand total of, I think, 25 minutes in the first 2 months of the season. And then guys started getting hurt. Playing minutes started opening up. He was competing with Marvin Bagley, to be the 4th center. Comes out, they get rid of Bagley, they get rid of Sarr. He takes over the backup center spot. He's been a leader on the team, and he's playing good like 15 to 20 to 25 minute some nights spurts off the bench and playing well. So shout out to him also. Marcus Smart has been solid. Bub Carrington's been playing well. AJ Johnson in limited minutes has been playing well. So got to give the whole team credit here for, in a season that most people are laughing at them, to be out there, to be competitive, and to be a little bit feisty. I saw a couple of shoving matches in those games against Detroit. So this team's not exactly backing down from their opponents. And we're going to finish off really quick with a spring training check-in. The Nats couple guys looking good. James Wood playing some good baseball. Hopefully he can carry that into the season. The pitching's concerning me a little bit. Not a lot of guys pitching particularly well. Dylan Cruz is hitting well. A couple other guys, Luis Garcia, CJ Abrams, both having good springs. No major injuries as of now. Cross your fingers, knock on wood, do all of that jazz, that continues. Because from what I have heard, the Nats actually might be one of the... No, I'm not going to say that statement because I'm just going to jinx it. So no, keep it up. Let's keep that going. I'm not going to finish talking about that. The Orioles' big injury news, of course, Grayson Rodriguez is hurt. He's not going to start the season in the starting rotation. Zach Eflin was named the opening day starter. So that he'll get the start on opening day for the team. That's great to see. Some good spring performances from guys like Cage Povich and Tomoyuki Sugano. Charlie Morton's looking pretty good. Gunnar Henderson came out today and said that he was feeling pretty good. He might still somehow manage to start opening day. I wouldn't mind if the team held him back for a couple of weeks, or not a couple of weeks, or a few games just to be sure he's good to go. You don't want these young guys pushing themselves too terribly hard to aggravate injury. So hopefully Gunnar can be healthy. Trying to think if we've had a great spring from Adley Rushman. Great spring from Adley. Ryan Mountcastle has been hitting home runs lately. Love to see that. Jackson Holliday's been hitting the ball pretty well, so shout out to him as well. Jordan Westberg also. That will do it for tonight's show. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. Once again, shout out to our sponsors, Planet Jerky Premium Beef Brisket Jerky. Go to planetjerky.net to get yours today. Vital Apparel, go to their website to get yours today. Use code IESR to get 15% off and continue to support them on their journey to helping people with their mental wellness. Seal the Deal Wax Seals. Go to Instagram at @SealTheDeal_Wax Seals to get your custom wax stamps today. Also, our newest sponsor, Raw Nutrition Supplements. Go to getrawnutrition.com. Use promo code IESR to get 10% there as well. Do be sure to follow us on all social media platforms, X, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube at IE Sports Radio. You can listen on all of these different platforms. Also, be sure to check out the website, iesportsradio.com. There you will find the blog, merchandise, Hall of Fame, show schedule, and so much more. Follow yours truly at letswine_ISR on X. And of course, do be sure to remember to go to the Supporters Club if you want to be a supporter today. And of course, reminder of the show's main message, which is please drink responsibly. Do not drink and drive. One of my favorite social media posts regarding this topic is that you can afford an Uber or a taxi before you can afford a DUI. So please drink responsibly. Do not drink and drive. It is simply not worth it. I will not be going anywhere after this, and if you've been drinking, neither should you. So if you're at home, please stay put, or if you're out and about enjoying your weekend, find a safe way home. Uber, taxi, designated driver, Lyft, Amazon, ship yourself home. I don't care what it is, just please do not drink and drive. It is simply not worth it. We will be back next week talking more DMV sports, drinking more DMV beverages, and hopefully celebrating a very good seed for Maryland in the NCAA tournament on both sides. And of course, talking some of our other DMV schools as well. Once again, thank you all for tuning in. This has been Mike Patt for Let's Whine About DMV Sports on the IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Have a great week. See you next time.